Welcome to Kempner Canucks. My name is Rev Trev. So glad that you're here because today we're doing the top 10 Canucks all-time forwards. This is going to be so awesome. If you haven't seen the top 10 defense, top 10 goalies yet, please go check that out. It's going to be on a playlist. Man, it looked like this is the list that I was so excited to do. In fact, I put so much time into this. It takes me probably I could make 3 videos for every one of these top 10 lists. That's how much time, research, graphics that I make for this. And I did it for you because I want it to be really done well. And I'm so glad that you're here watching this. So now listen, if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, I really want to encourage you to do that. Why don't you do a Rev Trev hat trick? Because this is just my opinion, right? If you're already watching, comment. Put in the comments who your top 10 forwards are. I'd love to read it. It's not as easy as it looks, trust me, but I'd love to do that. And if you're already doing those two things, watching and commenting, why don't you hit that subscribe button? I'm trying to grow the channel, create passionate, realistic, and honest Canucks content. Hit that subscribe button if that's the kind of content you like. Okay, let's dive into it. Now, when you do a top 10, you've always got to leave off some guys that are absolutely fantastic for the organization. So I'm going to talk about some honorable mentions to start, okay? The first honorable mention is someone who you might be a little surprised at, but an honorable mention to the top 10 would be Bo Horvat. He is definitely in the top 3 conversation for greatest Canucks captains that we've ever had. He was one of the best, if not best, face-off artist in team history. He won 6,711 face-offs for Vancouver. He's in top 10 scoring for us, but he's only an honorable mention, okay? So the other one is Petri Striko, a fantastic Finnish player who played very well for Vancouver in over 6 seasons in the 1980s for our Canucks, but he didn't make the top 10 list. Neither did Cliff Ronning. The New Westminster Bruin legend was incredible for Vancouver. He was only 5'8", 165 pounds, but he played big for us, didn't he? He played in 6 seasons, had 366 games, and had 328 points. That's a lot. So he didn't make the top 10, but he's an honorable mention for sure. Also, Don Lever. Don Lever, all-time Canuck, okay? 11th in Canucks scoring with 407 points in almost 600 games, but I couldn't put him in the top 10. Now, the other guy I could put in the top 10 was Alexander Mogilny. He only played 312 games with us, but he was super productive in those 312 games. He had 308 points. He should be selected in the NHL Hall of Fame, has been snubbed over and over again. He needs to be in the Hall of Fame, people. Now, unfortunately, I'm snubbing him on the top 10 list as well. Another guy that's going to be in the top 10 list eventually is JT Miller. Some of you are like, say, what? JT Miller, he's got a long contract. What he's already done in our city and in our franchise has been incredible. But I think once this contract is finished, and how much he progresses, he's going to end up being in the top 10. I just don't know where. So he's definitely in an honorable mention already, in my opinion, as well. Now, I know I'm supposed to be doing the top 10, but I'm going to give you a bonus one. I'm going to give you number 11, because this is the guy I wanted to put in the top 10, but I just couldn't justify it yet. Number 11 on my list is Elias Pettersson. Yes, I know, a current player. Okay, Canucks players with 100 points. There's 5 of them, okay? That's Pavel Bure, both twins, okay? Mogilny, Naslund, and now number 6 is Elias Pettersson. This is like, he had 102 points last year. He's only 24 years old, people. Now, he's going to be shooting up this list if he continues at this pace. He didn't crack the 70-point mark in the last 2 seasons. So he's only had 1 year of 100. If he continues in this stretch, he's going to get in the top 10. Of course, barring injury and staying at a pace that's reasonable, okay? So he could be considered the greatest Canuck of all time when his career ends. We just don't know yet. He just has to prove it. Now, right now, he's 20th in scoring already in Canucks history. And if he gets another 100 points this season, he will jump from 20th to 10th in one season. So he's super talented. And even though he's a smaller player, he's just been dominant. And for example, he won the slap shot award in the NHL All-Star game. We've never had a Canuck do that before. And at his size, how does he even do that? So he's just dynamic. So he's my number 11, moving up the rankings real soon. Okay, so let's get into my top 10 Canucks all time. At number 10, it's Alex Burrows. Now, some of you are like, say, what? How can Alex Burrows be in your top 10? Well, I know that he only has 324 points, but he's played 822 games as a Canuck. Listen, he is the unsung hero in Vancouver, and that's why, one of the reasons why he gets into the top 10. He gave it his all every single night. Now, I've got so many notes here. I'm going to be looking at my notes. I've got 2 sets of notes here. I want to make sure I give you everything, but now, we know that Alex Burrows wasn't the most talented player on the ice, but he could arguably be the guy who gave you the best effort every single night. When paired up with the Twins, he really was effective, of course, and he loved to stir things up with people. And the rumor has it that he didn't even start playing organized hockey until he was 14 years old, so he was a late bloomer. And man, this guy was an amazing Canuck. He's called the Dragon Slayer because he scored in that iconic Game 7 to finally beat the Dragon, the juggernaut Chicago Blackhawks, in overtime. One of the most iconic goals in Canuck history. Also, Alex Burrows, for all his hard work, has been named into the Canucks Ring of Honor. He's an official member there, so that's why he's my number 10. Okay. At number 9, I'm going with the large man himself, Todd Bertuzzi. Now, in my opinion, Todd Bertuzzi was and is the greatest power forward in Canucks history. Now, some of you say, well, what about Cam Neely? Well, if you look at Cam Neely's stats and production in Vancouver, he only played 3 years for Vancouver, and his most productive years, and he became elite in Boston. So it's a slam dunk. It's Todd Bertuzzi is our greatest power forward. Now, he was 6'3", 225 pounds. Now, I remember Todd not only being a prolific scorer and an awesome power forward, but he would hold guys off with one hand, have his hand on the stick with the other, and have the puck on the stick and shooting the puck. And he was unbelievably good. So I definitely have him as my number 9. In 02-03 season, he had 97 points in 82 games, almost broke that 100-point barrier. And the whole fan base, including himself, wished that he didn't take his enforcer role into his own hands, taking out Steve Moore. Man, we feel so bad for Steven, and because that changed his life and it ended his career, and it also changed Todd's life and career. And so I think Todd would have had many, many more great years with Vancouver. That didn't happen. That was just really traumatic and terrible on both ends, especially for Mr. Moore. Okay, number 8 is Thomas Gradin. Okay. Another Ring of Honor member. He played 8 seasons for the Canucks in the 70s and 80s. He's 6th all-time in Canucks history for scoring with 550 points in 613 games. So he was really productive. He was a key player in the 1982 Canuck finals run where they ended up losing to the New York Islanders, getting swept by them. Number 7 is Ryan Kesler. Ryan was just awesome to watch. Now, he wasn't our highest scoring forward, but he played a decade for the Canucks. Did you know that? 10 years for the Vancouver Canucks. He literally gave us his all. He was hard to play against. He was gritty. He was offensive. He loved to get under the opponent's skin, right? He was a warrior for the Canucks, okay? He was 12th in scoring in our franchise history. He was a face-off guru. He was third in face-off wins with almost a 53% face-off rate. He was the second-line center in the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals run when we lost to the Bruins in Game 7. And so, man, Ryan Kesler is my number 7. At number 6, guys, it's Tony Tanti. Now, he played on a lot of very bad Canucks teams, but he was the number 12 pick in the 1981 NHL draft. And after only playing 3 games for the Chicago Blackhawks, he was traded to Vancouver. And in 1984, he broke the Canucks goal-scoring record with 45 goals. He was the Canucks' most exciting player for many, many years. He led the Canucks in goals for 5 seasons, averaging 39 to 45 goals every year. It's basically a 40 goal scorer for Vancouver for 5 years in a row, and he still 8th in scoring, and he hasn't played since 1989, 1990. Wow, like that is fantastic, right? So in the top 5, I've got Stan Smyl. That's right, the Steamer made the top 5. He is a legend in Vancouver. He played 896 games. He was a hard-nosed, relentless player. He was a key member of the 1982 Cup Finals run. He was selected 40th overall by Vancouver in 1978 in the draft. He also was a New Westminster Bruins legend, winning 2 championships in 77, 78. But he retired as the Canucks' all-time leader in this, get this, games played, goals, assists, and points. Now, obviously, those have been broken since, but at the time, he was the leader in all those. And his number 12 was the first ever number to be retired in Vancouver. That was in 1991 in the Pacific Coliseum. The jersey was raised, his number was raised to the rafters, and it is still up in the Canucks Stadium to this day, number 12. Now, after retiring, Stan Smyl coached for 13 years within the organization with the Syracuse Crunch, the Kansas City Blades, and of course, the Manitoba Moose. After his time with the Moose, he was reassigned to the Canucks front office. Now, in December 2021, he briefly served as the interim GM of the Canucks after Jim Benning was fired. And because of all of this, I have Stan Smyl as my number 5 all-time Vancouver Canuck. At number 4, it's Trevor Linden. Now, to say that Trevor Linden is a Canuck legend is literally an understatement, right? It's totally an understatement. In fact, many of you right now are angry and triggered at me that I don't have him number 1 on my list. I really, really like Trevor Linden. If you've heard the story, I've met him personally in Penticton at the Young Stars tournament. Incredibly kind, friendly guy. Like, literally what you hear about Trevor Linden is absolutely true. Incredible person. And I really appreciate all that he's done for the Canucks and for the city of Vancouver and the area of Vancouver. Linden has definitely been our greatest captain, okay? He was named captain at a young age of 21 years old. His nickname is Captain Canuck, and he led the Canucks to back-to-back Smythe Division Finals in 92, 93. He was one of the key pieces to the 94 Finals Cup run, where they lost in Game 7 to the New York Rangers. And in that Game 7, not only did he hit the post that we thought it was going to score on to tie up the game, he scored the only 2 goals for Vancouver in that Game 7. Unfortunately, we lost 3-2. Man, Trevor Linden was an incredible player, and I can see if you have him number 1 on your list. I don't doubt that at all, but he's not number one on mine. Trevor Linden was the Canucks team president of hockey operations for a number of years, but stepped down in 2018. Many people still believe, many Canucks fans still believe that Trevor Linden allowing him to go was a mistake, that basically he stepped down. He didn't have the same vision as Jim Benning and our owner. But, you know, Benning wanted to do a retool. Linden wanted to do a rebuild, and many Canucks fans wish that we got that rebuild in those days. Linden finished his Canuck career as the fourth in scoring with 733 points. I mean, that's amazing, with a massive 1,140 games played. So he is my number 4. So now, walking into my top 3, I know some of you are still mad that Trevor Linden's not in my top 3. I'm just saying that Trevor Linden wasn't the best player on the ice compared to these top 3 players. And so you're going to be surprised maybe at some of these. Now, number 3 is Markus Naslund. Love Markus Naslund. When he came to Vancouver, is one of the biggest trades in Canuck history. One of the biggest steals, lopsided trades in NHL history. Stoyanov, I forget the guy's name. That's how bad he was. No, he was a power forward that they thought was going to... He only played 55 games for the Penguins, and we got Naslund. He ended up playing 13 years in the league. So, listen, Markus Naslund is known for his wrist shot, right? He has a snipe of a wrist shot. Still to this day, people talk about it. He was a special player, right? He is second in goals scoring with 346 goals, only behind Daniel Sedin in Canuck history. Naslund ends up being the 4th in Canuck history for scoring with 756 points in 884 games. So that's a lot of games. And if he wasn't injured by Steve Moore, he would have had many, many more productive years in Vancouver. He was voted as the Canucks MVP 5 times, and the leading scorer for the Canucks 7 times. Like, this is how good he was. He was a silent leader, right? Who led in and night out. He was part of that famous West Coast Express line, playing with Brendan Morrison, Todd Bertuzzi, and he won the Lester Pearson Award as the best player in the NHL, voted by the players. So, man, that you were MVP, voted by the players. That's amazing. And he was one of the guys who had the opportunity to mentor the Twins. All right, so that leaves us to the top 2. Now, some of you are sitting here going, there's 3 guys here that should probably be in the top 2. How are you doing that? Well, of course, I'm going to take the easy way out, and I'm going number 2, Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Now, how can you separate these guys? Like, they're identical twins, guys. And they played so incredibly on together for all their... How did Brian Burke land the 2nd and 3rd pick? Think about how difficult that'd be in any draft. In fact, there was a rumor that he almost had the 1st pick as well. So it would have been 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But anyways, long story to say, these guys, like... You get the 2nd and 3rd pick and then think that they've known each other their whole life. They played with each other their whole life. They're actually identical twins. And if you didn't know their numbers, it was hard to separate who they were. Like, that's how identical they were. In fact, it was in the media. Teammates had a hard time. Coaching staff. That's how identical they were. I want to read from you from The Athletic. Thomas Drance wrote an article years ago about the twins. And he had this quote that he put in his article, and I'm going to post the link to the article in the description. So let me just read it to you, okay? I was amazed because they were always so close in every single physical test or event that we had. Like, literally to the 10th of a second. It was so finite. It's not like one was always stronger or faster in one aspect and one was not. They were pretty much dead even the whole way. And it wasn't just the physical side or the genetic side, it was also the mental side that was similar. As we all know, you can be incredibly physically fit, but if you don't have the mental capacity to drive on, the stoicness to push through things that limits you, and both Hendrik and Daniel had it all. They had both the physical side and the mental side to push themselves. It's incredible, actually, when you think about it. It really is. Now, and it's totally incredible. And they were not only incredible players, they were incredible people. Perfected the cycle beneath the opponent's hash marks. They were criticized for years and years by media and fans, and always in fan discussion for trade rumors. So glad we never traded those guys, because they were criticized for not being tough, but they were very strong. They were productive. They both played over 1,300 games. That's insane. And they both scored over 1,000 points in Vancouver. Hendrik is number 1 on the Canucks scoring list, and Daniel's number 2. Daniel had 393 goals and 648 assists. That's something people don't understand. Daniel was an incredible passer as well. 648 assists. And Hendrik had 240 goals scored and 830 assists. Now, he's known as the passer, the centerman, and all that kind of stuff. In fact, one time they asked Hendrik, how come Daniel has so many more goals than you do? And he goes, well, I'd have way more goals too if I was passing to me. I thought that was a really great, probably true and honest comment. But Hendrik was the NHL MVP in 2010. Not to say that they're elite is just dead wrong. They were phenomenal, and they got to play on the same line for all of their career. So they are my number 2 A and B players for Vancouver Canucks history. All right, well, that leads us to number 1 player, and you probably no surprise to you, but my favorite player of all time, Pavel Bure. Now, listen, he is called the Russian Rocket for a reason, right? He is dynamic, elite. There was nobody like Pavel Bure. I know that some of you are saying he didn't play enough seasons, but Russian Rocket was not only lightning quick on the ice, he had a rocket of a shot as well. He is the only Canuck forward who averaged over a point a game as a Canuck. He played 7 seasons for us, 428 games played, 478 points. There is no one like Pavel Bure, like electric, amazing with the puck. As a teenager, my youth group went down to a game. We did a red eye. We drove all night, all day, got to the game, went to the game, came home. Listen, that was the season where the Canucks and the Rangers played each other in the regular season and also played each other in the finals, okay? I was there. I saw all the guys. Like, Jeff Bukaboom was massive. Gino Ojic was huge. Like, seeing those guys in real life. Trevor Linden, big guy on the ice, right? But Pavel Bure stood out amongst everyone. I mean, Brian Leach was there. It was like, that would have been Messier, right? So I think it was Messier I think it was Messier that year. I'm not sure. But anyways, it was 2 stacked teams, right? Pavel Bure stood out as the best player on the ice, and it wasn't close. I remember there was a moment in the game where he shot the puck from the blue line and missed the net, like just missed the top corner of the post, and it ricocheted around the glass all the way out and shot to the other end of the ice so fast. Like, he had a rocket of a shot, and that was one of the reasons why they called him the Russian Rocket, but mostly because he was fast, right? So go watch his top 10 highlight films of all time, and you will see you'll still be amazed to this day what he did back in those days. So there, in my opinion, him being number 1, there was something special and elite about Pavel Bure that I've never seen in a Canuck player since. I mean, I think Pettersson's good. I don't think he's Pavel Bure good, and maybe he will be one day. I'm not sure. But he was so dynamic, so amazing, and it was really sad when he left. He's been my favorite player of all time, so he's my number one. Again, post in the comments what your top 10 is. Hit that Rev Trev hat trick. Thanks so much for watching, and check out my other 2 videos on the top 10s, and I got lots of other Canucks videos as well. Have a great day, and of course, go Canucks, go.